Hey there, everybody. This is MegaTrain. Welcome back to Project Ozone LIte. I've actually done quite a bit of work since the last episode. Mostly tedious work, so didn't want to bore you by making a whole episode of it. But I've moved a few things around, and I want to show you what we've done. I've set up a smelting station over here using a couple of new endist furnaces. And basically, I've just got conduits pulling stuff out of the chest on the top and putting them into the chest on the bottom. And the middle chest is hooked up to the back of the furnaces to provide fuel, and raw carbon has a very long burn time, much longer than coal, and I've got plenty of that, so that works pretty good. Just to show you what it does here, I'm going to throw in a bunch of wood, and it'll distribute that to all the furnaces, and they'll start cooking. One thing that is worthwhile to do in cases like this, if I go into the extract conduit settings here, there's a round robin, and that's just going to make sure that items that I put in that chest are going to be spread evenly throughout all furnaces instead of filling up the first one before it moves on to the second. Also, a single speed upgrade just helps getting things moving faster. So behind that, I have changed my my soul sand farm. I just had a couple of mycelium blocks before that I was converting to soul sand manually, but now I've automated it. So instead of my well, which we can pull items out of the water out of the well with a bucket, to automate that, you've got to use something called a reservoir. So if I look at the recipe here, I need some hardened glass and a cauldron. And then it actually gives you 4 of these blocks. You fill it with water, and now you can use a liquid conduit, a fluid conduit, to pull anything out of it. So on the left-hand side here, I'm filling all of these barrels with water, and they're sitting on top of mycelium blocks, so they convert automatically. And as soon as they convert to witch water, this conduit will push sand into the bucket. So I did have to put a filter on here to make sure it was only pushing sand out and wasn't trying to put the soul sand back into the buckets. But it seems to work pretty well and converts things automatically. So you can make an arrangement like this that works with to make clay. You can use this to make something like obsidian, obviously with lava. So this kind of a mechanism, this kind of a setup, is a pretty universal tool. Let me pop down here to the second story, and it looks a lot different than it did before. I've expanded the platform. I've moved my diamond farm down here, just to get it out of the way, and because I'm hooking straight into my input from my ender chest. So any zombie flesh goes in this middle chest. Any already created diamond armor or saddles go into this chest here. And I've got double the number of drying racks than I did before. That automatically push and pull that out and stick them over here in my pulverizer. The one thing that is worth mentioning, it runs quite a bit faster than it used to because I've improved the pulverizer and added a couple of reception coils, which basically just increase the rate. And the augmentation kits, you basically have to go sequentially. So you start with a hardened upgrade kit with Invar, and Invar is an alloy that you make with nickel and iron. And the reinforced kit uses electrum. So I've been making some additional electrum is gold and silver. So I've been making some additional alloys as I've needed them for different items. And then the augmentation itself is pretty cheap, just redstone and gold, and this is redstone and gold as well. So this is basically multiplying my diamond capacity. When they complete, it'll fill up here, and I'm pulling out just the diamond blocks when I get a block worth, and it sends it upstairs. So this is the sort of the beginning of the mechanism that we started last episode. And let me show you what I've got here so far. So we've got the same bag openers that we had before. One thing that we will need to do in this episode is figure out a way to handle our books. Right now they're stacking up in the loot bag opener. I have to come through and clean them out and stick them in here manually. But there's some other aspects that are automated. I am throwing away a handful of additional items I don't need. There's a sword called the Ender that does not stack, and Lava Charms and Lexicobotania books. I was having trouble getting those to stack in chests as well, so I threw those in here because I already have enough of them. The two other items that were kind of left after all that stuff was taken care of were, number one, capacitors, custom capacitors. And basically the way that I got these to go in this chest here is by using a special kind of filter called a mod item filter. So the mod item filter is pretty cheap to make. There it is. Basically just make a Yeta wrench and put it around some paper. But the idea is that you take one of the item that you're interested in. Let me get my detailed tooltips on here. So these come from the Ender IO mod, and basically after the priority of this is lower than my bank of drawers above. So it'll try to put the item in the drawer first, and if it can't, and if it's from Ender IO, it'll put it in this chest. So we're going to show you today some nice ways to use these capacitors. These are a bit of a mystery. You've got to sort of decipher the name that's in them to figure out which of these are good and which of these are not all that great. The other category of items that you've got to handle here is these biome crystals. Again, they're from a mod called Random Things, and I'm using the same kind of a mod item filter to put those into the chest. Here's the deal, though. Basically, the only use for these is to make something called biome cobblestone or biome stone. There's a few different recipes for that. And all that is a stone that looks different in different biomes. Not all that interesting. It's a decorative block, and so all of these biomes really don't do much for me. You cannot make a machine to make I don't know, a dimension of this biome. It just doesn't do much good. So basically, I'm filtering these out, and I've got a flush here that throws them all in a trash can. So I don't throw them directly in a trash can because I want to make sure that I'm not accidentally getting anything in there that I ought not to be throwing away. But I really don't need those biome crystals at all. So let's go ahead and let me show you how we're going to filter out these books. And to do that, let me get my item conduits here. One thing I did make is I made a couple of ender pouches. The ender pouch is a pretty easy formula. What's really great about them is they hook up with ender chests of the same color. So I've got one that's triple white that matches my my ender chest here. When I open that, I see the same things flying through that I see in my ender chest. And actually, you can see that opens in the background. My triple black one, I'm just calling it my tool pouch. I've not created a corresponding ender chest in the world, but it's a convenient bag for me to haul around here. All right, so let me illustrate. Pull that off. Let me illustrate what the problem is with just a normal filter type. So let me go back into my tool pouch. And we're going to insert with a filter. And if I ignore metadata, that's about all you can do with the basic item filter. Let me pull all these out. And instead, I'm going to stick these into my ender pouch. So the hope, of course, is that all of these go into my chest because of that filter, but the truth is the only one that goes in there is the one that matches the actual enchantment, Bladering 4. So that is not good enough. A simple item filter is not going to cut it here, and we certainly can't put all of the different enchantments in here because there are a lot. This chest is all my vanilla enchantments, and this one is all my modded enchantments, and there are plenty more even than the ones that I have. So let me pull these out of here just so they're not clogging it up. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to make the machinery that we need to make an advanced item filter. The advanced item filter requires what's called a Z-Logic controller, which is made in a machine called a slice and splice. And if you look at that, it requires a bunch of solarium. This is why I needed all that soul sand. And I also need a couple of zombie heads. I really have oodles of mob heads. We never actually did construct any beheading upgrades for my mob masher down below, but I've still got plenty. So no problem with mob heads at this point. And it shouldn't be hard for us to construct our slice and splice. So it needs a set of shears and an iron axe, and as a matter of fact, when I use it, I'll have to put a couple of those things in it as well. Alright, so shears go here, an axe goes here, and we can put that in. There you go. There's other kind of things that we're going to be making in our slice and splice at some point. But this is the one that we need for right now. And if I make that here, now we can go down below. We can replace this one with this one. And I'm going to, oops, that doesn't go there. I'll put any old book in there as a whitelist. Ignore metadata. Ignore NBT. Ignore damage. And I don't think I need to change the priority here. There's basically no other boxes this thing would go into. So, if I throw these in here, we will see whether it works. And it does. Very nice. So that should keep my my loot bag openers clear until my other stuff upstairs fills up. Looks like my music discs are full. I'll have to take care of those as well. But just to follow through here, basically, this first chest is kind of like a staging chest. So they'll go in here originally, and then it'll just push it into either of these two boxes. So I filled up all the slots, so it'll only match up with any items that are already in here. Fortunately, they stack, so all I have to do is make sure that everything in here is in one of these boxes. So, for example, Civ Efficiency 5, I've got a slot set for that, so Civ Efficiency 1 will be there, so 5 will be here, and now any other Civ Efficiency 5s will come in there and match it up. So it requires a little bit of hand-holding here, but I've got a lot of enchanted books already here: Unbreaking, Looting, Fortune, Punch. I've got some mending books up here. And there's definitely some of these that I will be using. There's a enchantment called Soulbound that basically means when you die, you keep the item. So that's definitely one that we'll be using. But now this pretty much completes my my initial filter that will take care of all the items as they come up from the mob farm. That is until we upgrade the mob farm. So let me get some materials, and we're going to crank this thing up to 11. Okay, I broke into the back of my mob farm. I've turned it off for the moment, and I've put in some witch water. And when mobs fall down here and hit the witch water, something interesting is going to happen. So the witch water actually changes mobs into other kinds of mobs. So it'll change a skeleton into a wither skeleton. It'll change a normal spider into a cave spider. I think it makes a couple of other changes, but those are the most important ones. And basically, now I'm going to have a whole different set of drops that are available to me here that I may have not already been getting. So I'm going to get some Eye of the Storm. That's dropped from charged creepers. I'm going to get some drops of evil that we'll make use of in 1 second here. Withered Ribs and Withered Skeletons Skulls is one of the more interesting ones that we haven't already accounted for. So that'll definitely be important as well. There we go. Let's see if this actually places. And at least a certain percentage of the mobs that are falling through here will actually go through this water. So, and I've got to repair some of the damage that the Endermen have caused here. And while I'm in here, I'm going to do one more thing. I've got my Ender pouch that shows me the contents of the Ender chest, and I'm going to use these drops of evil. And if you touch them on your dirt, they will do nasty, nasty things. So basically, they turn your mob farm into a super crazy mob farm. So they are still affected by light levels, so that's why I'm not getting overwhelmed right at the moment. I don't believe they produce different kinds of mobs, but they definitely increase the number of mobs that drop. So let me pull back out of here and close up this hole I made in the front. So I have some normal mobs that are dropping. I have others that are dropping through the witch water, and it does appear that I'm going to be getting some of the additional drops that I was looking for. All right, so it looks like the first thing I need to do is get a better weapon, because I just got killed by an evolved Enderman. Okay, what I did want to show you is that I've got my Withered Skeleton skulls coming in here. This is actually quite a while later, so this thing is almost filled up. Got several hundred now, which is more than I'll ever need. The other thing that it did allow me to do, though, is it allowed me to get the Withered Skeleton quest, which required 3 of those. There's a few of these other achievements that I can pick up as well. We made a liquid XP storage unit. And we made a slice and splice. And there's a few others that we can work on here as well. Double layer and octadic capacitors. And we're going to actually use those capacitors to build the upper level capacitor banks here as well. So we'll make a pile of those. And we'll take a portion of those and make some of the octadic capacitors. I don't think I want quite that many. I need some double layers. So let me hold on to some double layers. I think I grabbed too much stuff. There we go. We'll get the achievements for the double layer and the octadic capacitors. Basic capacitors hold 10,000 or 10 million RF. The next level up holds 50 million, and the top level holds 250 million. And the ones we've made already are the basic capacitor banks. There's 2 ways to make the intermediate level. And that is either from scratch, or you can base them on a couple of the basic capacitor banks. So that's part of what I'm going to do here. Is I'm going to mine up 2 of my 4, 2 of these 4 here. Use the upgrade recipe there for 1 intermediate level. We will ultimately be able to make a 3rd one to take the other 2 down, but before I do that, I'm going to make a couple of the top level ones. Again, we can use either the upgrade from the middle tier, or we can make them directly from octadic capacitors, electrical steel, and vibrant crystals. These vibrant crystals are just vibrant alloy nuggets and emeralds, so we can make a few of those. All right, I've got my vibrant capacitor banks into place. The problem now is that I really need to get a better power production. And it's not that there's anything wrong with my Stirling generators here. It's just they're not kicking out all that much power. Now, these capacitors we made, though, do have the ability to increase the output. So a double layer capacitor will take it up to 60. An octadic capacitor will take it up to 120. So that's great. That's definitely a good start. One thing that is worth trying, though, is these funny looking capacitors that we get in loot bags are worth trying as well. So at one level, you can simply throw some in and see what they do. This one gives 90. This one gives 30. That one's no good. This one gives 109. This one gives 177. That one's excellent. 217 is crazy good. And 285 is insane. The other thing that you can do is you can actually decipher the codes that tell you how good each of these capacitors are. If you look at the mouse over here, this is called a premium hot impossible capacitor. I'm going to link in the show notes to the page that describes how to break this down. Basically, the last part of this phrase, impossible capacitor, is kind of the base level. And impossible is the highest base level. So a wonder capacitor is the next level down. That's very good. There is a enhanced capacitor. There are also plain capacitors and capacitor duds. As you can imagine, capacitor duds are not all that good. The second part that you need to look at, though, is in front of that definition is some extra modifiers. So good hot capacitor basically describes how the behavior is in certain specific machines. So hot indicates the Stirling generator. So if I can find one that is, see, this one says good hot as well. This one says premium hot, which is very good. This one is premium hot. Those were my better scores. And this one here is unstable hot, which is the very, very highest level. So this is kicking out tons of power now with this capacitor. I'll go ahead and throw some of these additional ones in there that get some really good rates. I've actually also done this for some of my other machines. So I found one. It says premium clean cut. Clean cut is out of the code that tells you that it's going to enhance the slice and spice. So that's really increasing the performance here. Same thing for my alloy smelter. This is a premium smelting capacitor, and so that's really increasing my performance here. So basically every machine in the game, this is incredibly crushed, is the benefit from my sag mill. It's worth looking at your codes and finding ones that are good. You're going to find a lot of these loot capacitors that are basically junk that you can throw away. But this is definitely going to be increasing my total power output. So if we start using a lot more of this, we're going to want to find some better sources of energy. But let's go ahead and claim our 2 additional loot bags here. Let's take care of that Enderman problem here. There is another Ender IO machine that we can utilize here. It is called an aversion obelisk. Basically prevents certain specific mobs from spawning. So I've got most of what I need. The one piece I need is a tormented Enderman head. This is not a normal Enderman head. And this you make in your slice and spice with a normal Enderman head and a capacitor. So let me get all the ingredients for this, and we'll make one of them up. A basic capacitor. Got one of those. And you can see that is very, very fast now that I've got the appropriate capacitor in here. And we'll craft this up. And there we go. It is going to use power, so I'll set it down here for now. And basically I've got to put inside it one of the mob that I need, and the specific, basically you've got to get these little vials. Called a soul vial. So I need fused quartz and solarium for that. I already made a few of these earlier because I was having, I was being frustrated with the, with all the Endermans floating around. So pick up one of these and drop it in here. And basically, to the range of this this rectangle, however far this goes out, I'm prevented any of these things from spawning. So right now that range covers my entire farm. Later on, I may have to expand it. I could probably just add a capacitor to expand that range. But that is going to hopefully make my island Enderman free. One more comment about my array of drawers here. You're really just going to have to watch and sort of manage them individually. You'll have to figure out, okay, I'm getting a lot of skeleton heads pop up. I need to come in here and put an upgrade or a void upgrade. The void upgrade basically voids everything over the capacity. So if I know that there is no way I'm going to need more than 26,000 gunpowder, I use one emerald upgrade and one void upgrade, and everything over that just disappears. It doesn't clog up my system. So you've got to do that for all this stuff. Just keep your eye on things. Before we end, let's go ahead and open some loot chests. Wyvern cores will be really handy later in the game. Carrot pluses, I don't care about those. Graphite ore will be nice. Because if I don't go to other dimensions, I might not have other ways to get that. Ooh, chance cubes. We'll maybe play with those later. Stone and wood is not exciting. Chance pendant and draconic cores. Alright, so that is probably later on in the game, but both draconic cores and wyvern cores will come in handy later on. So thank you for sticking with me. And I think next time we'll probably get into some of the alternate ways to get some of the resources that we can't get in the Nether, because we need to start getting some other materials. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.